The Fat Controller came to the sheds one day with exciting news.
As you may know, I've recently reopened an old scenic line, and to celebrate this, I've arranged for a few special trains to run on it.
The engines were thrilled.
Will I be chosen, sir?
Asked James enthusiastically.
No, me. I'm the fastest.
Oh, I'm afraid that none of you will. A visiting engine from the mainland will be doing it instead, as you're all too busy with your own jobs. It'll be for a week or so, so I want you all to make him as welcome as possible when he arrives.
Yes, sir, they all said, although James and Gordon were very upset. The visitor arrived next morning. Percy saw him being unloaded from a ship. He looked very large and splendid indeed.
Hi, I'm Percy. You must be the new visitor then.
Indeed I am.
Replied the newcomer modestly.
I am Archibald, and I cannot wait to get started in my excursions. You'll be a good fellow and show me the shed.
Certainly.
Smiled Percy.
I'm actually on my way there myself. Follow me.
Everyone was excited when they saw Archibald arrive in their yard. Bill and Ben especially wanted to speak to him, but to their surprise, Archibald took no notice of them.
What's his problem?
Snorted Ben.
I reckon he's just tired. I would be if I spent most of my time traveling on a ship.
Said Thomas. So he and Percy tried to talk to Archibald, but he completely ignored them. Instead, he spent most of his time in the company of the big engines, talking and laughing loudly. Gordon and James warmed to him immediately, and thus forgot to feel jealous. Soon, the Fat Controller arrived and welcomed Archibald warmly.
I'm very pleased that you've arrived. The first excursion begins tomorrow, so you'll need an early start to be ready before then.
Yes, sir,
said Archibald grandly. That night at the shed, Percy and Thomas tried to talk to him again.
Will you two buzz off?
Snapped Archibald crossly.
I don't want you little engines bothering me.
The tank engines were offended.
We were only trying to be friendly,
hissed Thomas.
Is there like a little problem here? What have you got against us?
Little engines aren't useful engines. I prefer to spend my company with engines who are far more important and dignified.
Nonsense! We're all important here on this railway, whether we're little or large.
Archibald just scoffed and continued chatting to Henry, leaving the two small engines to go crossly to sleep. The next day, Thomas arranged the coaches for Archibald's first train. Archibald didn't even look at him as he backed proudly into the station. The platform was filled with excited passengers, all pleased to travel onto the open line.
Aren't you going to say something to me?
Asked Thomas crossly. Archibald looked down at him.
But you're not going to say anything to me?
Oh, yes, of course, of course. Go away! You're spoiling my image.
Pushed Thomas and clanked away in a huff. Soon, Archibald and his special train were thundering along the new line. The scenery looked splendid, and everyone had a lovely time. But on the journey home, however, things went downhill. Archibald hurtled on his way back to the big station. He was looking forward to having a good chat with James, Henry and Gordon again. when suddenly there was a frantic hissing sound. Steam began escaping from one of his pipes. Wailed Archibald. He tried to struggle on, but he quickly lost speed and had no choice but to stop. His driver looked all over him.
Now, bugger. Looks like you sprung a leak. We'll have to call for help.
And he ran to the nearest signal box.
See the motion come out of the handles in them.
Blithering idiot.
Bill and Ben were on their way home from the harbour when they got the message and were sent right away to assist.
Oh, look, Bill. It's the poster who thinks small engines aren't any use to him.
Grinned Ben.
Well, looks like he'll be eating his own words now.
Giggled Bill. Archibald felt far too embarrassed to say anything as the twins started to the rescue. They double-headed the train and, struggling hard, they hauled it back down the line. The other engines were very surprised to see Archibald in the special train being pulled in by Bill and Ben. Thomas and Percy laughed out loudly.
He doesn't look so grand now.
They chortled. Once again, poor Archibald felt very silly indeed. He was sent to the repair yard to be mended, but he was still miserable. What had begun as a splendid day had turned into a disaster.
What a foolish old thing I've been.
He mourned.
And I doubt those little engines will ever let me hear the last of it.
Later that night, however, he got a surprise. Thomas, Percy, Bill and Ben came to the yard to see him, but they had something very different to say,
We were talking about your mishap today,
said Percy.
and we've come to say sorry for laughing.
We realized we were just as bad for teasing you, even if today did serve you right.
Said Thomas.
I know, and I'm sorry for being so discriminatory towards you all. I always saw you little engines as common shunters who just arranged the trains and such. Now I realize I was wrong. Now everyone will think of how silly I am.
No, they won't. You actually did very well up until the incident.
Said Bill kindly.
It wasn't your fault anyway.
Added Ben.
Just bad luck, that's all.
You know, you'd actually be a lot more popular if you were kind of both big and small engines. There's no middle ground.
Added Percy.
Then we'd have no reason to hold grudges against you. Unless you stole my mail train. Then I might get a little angry.
Archibald smiled. He felt so pleased that the tank engines were being so kind that he forgot to feel sorry for himself. When he was mended the next day, he spent the rest of the week running on the scenic line with no mishap. But this time, whenever he came across one of the smaller engines, he whistled kindly to them and they always returned a friendly greeting. By the end of his stay, Archibald was pleased that he'd made so many new friends, as well as gaining an improved trust for tank engines. And he went home a better engine indeed.